Hello, I'm Ed with Quality Sewing and Vacuum. I work in the Tukwila store, and today I'm going to help familiarize you a little bit with your mechanical sewing machine. Today I'm going to show you the basic functionality of the machine, the little bag of accessories that comes with your machine so you understand what the feet are, a little cleaning, and some troubleshooting hopefully. The best way to interface with this video is to have your machine in front of you, your device next to you. That way you can pause the video as you need, take notes, but more importantly, interface with your machine and try and cement the information as you're using it so it becomes more familiar. So, I selected today our Baby Lock Zeal, and let's get started. So with the machine, fairly simple, straightforward. We can plug in our power cord, one direction. Our on-off switch is here. Your flywheel on the machine is here. And don't be hesitant to use the flywheel, though you will see it moving when you're using your foot control. You'll want to use this for your nuanced motions within the thing and within the machine. You want to use this flywheel to be able to maneuver your needle, because with these mechanical machines, the needle does not stop in an up or down position necessarily. So feel free to be able to use that. Also, you'll need to use your flywheel to release, to wind your bobbin, which we'll get to right now. With your machine comes usually a set of 4 bobbins, and within the machine is going to be one empty bobbin. So we're going to take this out. We're going to place this up on our bobbin winder. We're going to take our spool of thread. Ideally, when you're starting to sew, I would recommend at least some polyester in your thread. That way it doesn't lint up very much and you have less collection of fiber within your bobbin area. So, but definitely choose a good quality thread. It will make everything a lot more enjoyable. So we're going to put our spool of thread up on our bobbin, or up on our spool pin. Make sure you have your cap in place. And on the top of your machine, you'll see that you have several arrows that will direct you either in the direction of winding your bobbin or in the direction of threading your machine. In this particular machine, as long as you make sure you get your thread through this particular disc right here, which is going to be your tension area, that allows you to wind a nice, clean, smooth bobbin. When you take your thread, put it through the small hole up in your bobbin, snap that into place, and then you'll see that the bobbin winder snaps towards its little limit dial right here. I'm going to wind my bobbin, holding onto the edge of the thread, let things get into place here. Oops, I forgot to pull out my little flywheel because that's going to disable my needle over here. So I'll continue winding this so this part doesn't get wound up into your bobbin. Snip that free and continue winding. It's best if you do this on a slower speed so that way you get a nice compact bobbin. You don't have to worry about overwinding it. That's why this little element is right here. It will keep you from doing that sort of beyond the limits of the bobbin. So we're going to snip this loose. And to get up here on the top of the machine, we follow the arrows. We'll release it from our tension disc for our bobbin, and we're going to go through the simple down, up, down threading motion. We move it through our first arrow here on the top. We come down through here on our tension disc. When you wind it or send your thread through the tension disc, you want to make sure that your needle is or the presser foot is in the up position. Otherwise, your tension disc will close and your thread will not be properly assembled or properly fed through those discs. So for now, we want to make sure our presser foot is up. We bring it back up into our take-up lever, which you can see revealed here on the top of the machine. There's basically a large hook here. You come over here on the right, leave on the left. You'll feel it catch into place there. And we come back down here through again. 1, 2, 3, 4, labeled on the machine. There is one more hook that lets our thread be very close to our needle. And at this point in time, we want to drop our presser foot. That way it allows us better access to the eye of our needle. I'm going to snap my flywheel or hand wheel back into place. That way it enables my needle to move. And I want on this particular machine my needle to be at the apex. That way my needle threader can come down and interface properly with the eye of that needle. So that down in position, I'm going to bring my needle around this outer left side hook. Make sure it's caught on the right hand side, holding gently with the thread in my right hand, and then basically release the entire effort, both hands free. My needle is threaded. What I want to be sure and do is draw the thread out through the back part of the needle. Otherwise, you get to do the process over again. So, press your foot up in place. I'm going to release my bobbin again. Swing it back to the left. That releases it from the bobbin area. And I want my thread to release from this direction from my bobbin. So in a counterclockwise manner, I drop my bobbin into the case. Don't worry about catching the bobbin hook. But in this particular instance, oftentimes there'll be a little cutter, but on this mechanical machine, what I'm going to want to do is drop my needle down and grab up my bobbin thread. So I proceed to do that here, and you see that drawn up that way. Once this is up and out of the way, then we can take our bobbin cover and put it back in place. And now we're ready to sew. The machine comes loaded with its standard foot. This should allow you to do most stitches, say for example your straight stitch, your zigzag stitches, satin stitches, decorative stitches for the most part. And there's a small lever on the back of this for ease of removal. It simply drops back down. And then what's nice is you can use this basically to position it under your groove area. Drop this down, it grabs your presser foot and you can pull it back up. You want to draw your threads back here. And one thing you want to kind of remember with your top thread is to be sure when you're sewing is to hold this back into place. It'll prevent something called bird nesting, where your machine wants to cram too much of the thread from the top down to the bottom of your stitching, and you end up with little balls of, or gatherings of thread. And that we want to avoid. So let's go through the rest of the items in our machine. We have our little slide out tray here, and then our further sliding out area. What happens when we slide our tray out here, this provides our free arm area for doing cuffs, for doing pant legs, hemming, that sort of thing. So this, make sure your threads are clear. Snap that back into place. And all your tools can be stored within this area here. Bobbins in the back, feet, and especially your buttonhole foot in the front. This is our screwdriver, basically. It allows you to remove your needle plate, this area here. So we'll put this in. You always receive a pack of needles of varying sizes. You want to use your 70 weight needles for your lightweight threads, roughly 80 weight, 90 weight needles for your heavier or mid-weight fabrics, and you want to use your hundreds for denims, canvas, that sort of thing. One thing you want to do is be sure to match your needle to your thread. So if you're using a finer weight thread, you want to use obviously a smaller eye needle, and it's a little bit inverse in measuring. The higher the number on your thread, the finer the thread, whereas the higher the number on your needle, the heavier the needle. So higher weight thread, smaller weight needle. And again, with your heavyweight thread, if you're doing, say, top stitching for jeans, that sort of thing, a heavy top stitch thread, you want to use ideally what's called a top stitch needle. It has a larger eye and allows the thread to feed through the needle readily and make a better stitch in your fabric. Continuing on in this particular machine, we have our overcast foot. We have our blind hem foots for making invisible hems on pants. We have our overcast foot for if we have two edges together and we want to be able, especially in knits, to be able to bind them together with a serging effect without the knife that cuts it, as a serger does. We have our zipper foot. This allows, we have our stitch, over here we have our needle, our stitch length and our stitch width. So when we're using our zipper foot, you'll use your stitch width to be able to position your needle on the right and the left-hand side of your zipper foot to be able to create those. We also have our decorative stitch foot in this area here. Now, again, as I explained, we have our stitch width adjustment on the top, our stitch selector with our mechanical machine, which allows us to access this top row of stitch patterns. If we want to use knits, we use our bottom or purple area by switching our dial around to SS for stitch. We have a buttonhole setting as well on this. So when you're creating your buttonhole, automatic buttonhole, we can snap our foot loose here. Take our button, Slide it in this area here just for reference purposes. I'm going to use this bobbin. So I would want to snap that into place. I can position my buttonhole foot right below here. So we have our buttonhole foot in place, but we want to make sure that we have our buttonhole lever pulled all the way down so that the machine can read between this small plastic lever in the front and the plastic lever in the back. Thus, when you create the buttonhole, the way the buttonhole is created from front to back, so it will bar tack wide in the front, create the left-hand side of your buttonhole, bar tack in the back, and then create the right side of your buttonhole. What you want to do on this particular machine is just find the sweet spot within. You have a few ticks in the range of the buttonhole to be able to tighten up the side stitching on your buttonhole. If you want it a little looser, if you have a heavier weight fabric, if you want it a little tighter with a finer weight fabric, nuance this area right here, basically between 0 and 1 on your stitch length area to tighten up that zigzag. So a little bit of a nuance to get it out from underneath there. Carefully do so. You can tuck this back into place. So, as we are ready to sew, we'll put our standard foot back in place. Bring this up. Again, draw our threads to the back. Try and avoid that nesting. And we can start to sew. If I set my stitch width at 0 and I'm on my stitch length, let's start with a mid-range of about 2.5. And A and B is our straight stitch here. Basically, B moves our needle automatically to one side. A is going to be our straightforward stitch. So, press your foot down, and we're ready to go. Now, for purposes of comparison, I can switch over to now my C, which is my zigzag, widen my stitch width to 5, and proceed. My stitch length, we're going to lower that down to about 1.5. That'll give me a nice tight zigzag. We have our little cutter bar over here on the left-hand side. So as you can see, we have a nice straight stitch here, moving on to a wide zigzag here. If I tuck this back in, wanting to be able to tighten down my zigzag, make that even smaller, lower my presser foot. Use our cutter bar on the left. And again, you can see here you have complete control over the width and capability of your zigzag stitch. This proceeds through all of yours. You can use this for comparison purposes. I was able to, here's our straight stitch here. We have our triple stitch, for example, which is a nice reinforced stitch to be able to use on canvases, jeans, that sort of thing. Zigzag and straight stitch comes in a triple stitch in this particular machine. So what you might want to do is take a little sample and set yourself for a wide stitch width, a narrow stitch width, a long stitch length, a narrow stitch length, and just see what kind of stitches that this renders, because you have your little picture here on your machine, but get a feeling for what these do. For example, this stitch and this stitch are exactly the same setting on my machine. They're just done with different widths and lengths. Again, this stitch here and this stitch here is my satin stitch in J, but I've obviously lengthened my stitch quite a bit, even with the same stitch width. So don't be hesitant to work with your machine quite a bit. The great thing about a mechanical machine is that it's a very easy interface. You don't have to worry about an LCD screen and finding those difficult parts. All your stitches are right in front. You have a one-step buttonhole that the machine is capable of. If you'd like to go in and nuance stitches just a little bit more, you can also build your buttonholes in a 4-step process. Gives you just a little bit more control. We also have one more lever that I forgot to tell you about, is our reverse. And what we want to do is, say for example, I want to use straight stitch and I want to back tack. So I want to make sure that I have a nice start and finish to my stitch. So I would hit reverse, back tack a couple stitches, proceed. When I come down to where I want my seam to finish, I hit reverse again, back tack a few times, raise my presser foot, cut my thread, and then I can come over here, cut my ends, and that way I don't have to worry so much about tying in the ends of my stitch for a nice finished seam. So, thank you very much for joining us today in learning about your mechanical machine. If you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to contact us at Quality Sewing and Vacuum. If you happen to be in the Puget Sound area, call any one of our stores. On our website, you can find our phone numbers and locations of all our stores. If you're not in the Puget Sound area, please feel free to look on our website at qualitysewing.com for more information, for information about some of our favorite notions that all of us on the staff like to use. And we would love to see whatever it is that you're creating with your mechanical machine or any other machine that you happen to be working with. Feel free to post your pictures on our Facebook page, or tag us on Instagram at Quality Sewing. Thank you so much for joining me today. We look forward to seeing you in our stores or hopefully on our website soon. Take care.